I'm Charlotte and today I'm at the Ludlow trial site in Shropshire. As you know, unfortunately this year we're not able to have an open day where you can come and look around the plots in person. So instead we're going to try and show you around some of our varieties virtually that we feel are most relevant to the West. So first of all we are in the Group 1s. Our first plot is Skyfall, which is an early maturing variety. It's got a flexible drilling date and performs well on light soils. It also makes a great second wheat. This is the treated plot of Skyfall. And we also have some photographs of our untreated plots so you can see the difference. So we're in our second Group 1 plot, which is KWS Zyat. It performs well on average soils. It is slightly higher yielding than Skyfall, and again, like Skyfall, it makes a good second wheat. You can see in the treated plot, it is fairly clean in comparison to the photograph of the untreated plot, where you start to see some yellow rust in the flag leaf. So finally we're in our third Group 1 variety, and that is Crusoe. It's an established milling variety that produces consistent yields. Overall the grain quality is really good, and that makes it easier for it to reach a higher protein content and therefore often achieves better premiums. This is the treated plot, and as you can see it is fairly clean. Now Crusoe is quite susceptible to brown rust and it's been quite easily controlled here, but as you can see from the photograph of the untreated plot, there are quite high levels of brown rust in that. So now we're on to our Group 2 varieties, and the first variety within this group is KWS X-Days. It's a fast maturing variety that is better suited to a mid to late drilling slot. It's also got a really high Septoria score, making it ideally suited for the western region. As well as this, it's got tall straw and performs really well on dry soils. So this is the treated plot, and as you can see it really demonstrates that it is fast maturing. And you can also see this from the photograph of the untreated plot, and it's fairly clean in regards to disease levels. Another Group 2 variety that we're going to look at today is KWS Siskin. It's a short straw variety that doesn't tend to tiller as well and therefore requires higher seed rates. It's also started to succumb to disease levels and therefore hasn't performed as well. This is the treated plot. As you can see, the disease levels have been fairly well controlled in here, but if you look at the photograph of the untreated plot, you can see that it's got high levels of yellow rust in that. The Group 3 variety that we're looking at today is KWS Firefly. It's a good early driller, and it's slow developing, and it produces good yields. It's also a variety worth considering if you're looking at growing a soft variety for poultry feed, for example. This is the treated plot, and as you can see the disease has been well controlled in here. If you compare it to the photograph of the untreated plot, there is a little bit of yellow rust. Now we're on to our Group 4 soft varieties, and the first variety within this group is Skyscraper. It's a high yielding variety with good grain quality. Overall it's a good performer, but it does just require a little more attention in regards to Septoria, and also it requires a good PGR programme as it is a taller variety. This is the treated plot, and if you look at the photograph of the untreated plot you can see the levels of Septoria starting to creep in. So our next Group 4 soft variety is Sundance. It's got a good disease profile, especially Septoria. Unfortunately, its susceptibility to eye spot does limit its potential as a second wheat. It also tends to have a low specific weight, which means it does need to be drilled into heavier, more fertile soils. And then if we have a look at our treated plot, it's looking nice and clean. And if you compare this to the picture of our untreated plot, you can see that that's also pretty clean. Our next variety is RGTsaki. It's new on the list this year. It's ideal for early drilling, but is also later to harvest. It's got good grain quality and good straw strength. It's also shown to be pretty clean this year so far, and as you can see from our treated plot, we've been able to control disease levels pretty well. And if you look at the comparison picture for the untreated, you can see that there's only a tiny bit of yellow rust on the flag leaf. Now we're on to the group 4 hard varieties, and the first variety we have is Clean. It's a widely grown variety, very consistent. It doesn't particularly stand out in any area, but it is a good performer across all soil types. It works well in either a first or second wheat situation, and it's also got a very flexible drilling date. As you can see from the treated plot, it is an early maturer. Another thing to note is it does have Hereford in its parentage, meaning we are starting to see a little more yellow rust, which if you compare the picture of the untreated plot, you can see that yellow rust starting to show. Our next variety is Graham. It's a consistent variety that tends to yield particularly well in the west. It's early maturing with good grain quality and all-round good disease resistance. It also looks to be a suitable option for early drilling. As you can see from the treated plot, it has started to mature quite quickly. And if we have a look at the photo from the untreated plot that was taken a couple of weeks ago, you can see that it's looking pretty clean. Our next variety is SY Inciter. It's a new variety that's very high yielding and has a particularly good specific weight of 78.3. It's also a taller variety, so that's something worth bearing in mind when you're thinking about a PGR programme. Another thing to note is it does have Hereford and Oakley in its parentage, meaning we are starting to see a little bit more yellow rust. As you can see from the treated plot, it's not the best example as it was drilled on lighter soil. But if we have a little look at the photograph of the untreated, you can see the yellow rust starting to show. Another group 4 hard variety that we wanted to mention was Costello. We don't have a plot this year, but it's a consistent variety that has the highest specific weight of any winter wheat currently available. It also has overall good grain quality. The final variety I wanted to talk about today is a new candidate variety called RGT Wolverine. It's again a group 4 hard wheat, and what makes it unique is it's the first wheat available that has the BYDV resistant trait. This is particularly useful for early drilling without seed treatments. At the moment, there's very little seed available commercially, but hopefully next year it will be more widespread.